everybody. So, this embodying our values, I think, is the very basis of equity and sustainability. So let's think about what that means. What do we mean when we say embodying values is the very basis of equity and sustainability? After millions of years of evolution, for the first time, all major threats to our survival are human-caused. Of course, there are natural disasters, but they are not the spaces that are the major cause of what's happening. It's our wars. It's our conflict. It's our everyday exploitation of people. It's our racism, our classism, our casteism, our religious fundamentalism. All of that is what is creating major threats in our world, in the world of refugees, in the world of immigrants, in the world of creating poverty, where there is so much abundance. People say that poverty is the underlying cause of so many things like ill health, like lack of education. No. Poverty is a structural issue. Poverty in a world of abundance is not an underlying cause. It is the effect of systems, it is the consequence of systems and norms that are not based on equity, that are not based on universal dignity, that are not based on compassion and caring. That's what is the root factor. The root factor is not being able to unfold individual and collective strategies based on who we are, on our inner capacities, on our caring. So the basis of equity and sustainability is to embody the values that underlie our major declarations where we know civilization needs to move forward. Because truly, it is human beings that are today creating the major threats of survival, of diminishing one and the other, of not unfolding our full potential. The state of the world, therefore, is a consequence and an expression of our own minds, our own thinking, our ideological way of sort of explaining our things. In explaining our global crisis, we generally focus on the importance of economic, social, and political forces and factors as causes of the persistence of the world's problems. And therefore, we limit our responses to technological, economic, and political approaches. And of course, these are necessary. These technological, economic, and political approaches are vital. However, they need to transform. And it is not until we see these global problems as the symptoms of one fundamental, deep-rooted crisis, the symptoms of our individual and shared mindset, where psychological and cultural factors and forces reign, that we can even look at our assumptions and mount a more profound response. The key to creating a thriving future lies in transformative approaches based on universal values that truly transcend our scarcity mindset in our abundant planet, and our attachment, when we can transcend our attachment to our own rigid ideological and ego-based ways of looking. It requires us to be dynamic. I am inviting you as listeners to ask yourself these questions. Do you ever reflect on embodying values? What does it mean when I live from the values I care about, when I'm being those values. And of course, as human beings, there are times that I step out of that space simply because I'm human. But I'm open enough to notice it. Do you do that? Do you ask yourself the question, what's different today if for millions of years human beings have thrived, the planet's thrived? What are we doing as human beings that are creating so many problems related to climate change, related to exploitation of labor, related to our own unhappiness, our own stress, which is distress? So how are we what are we doing with that? Do we realize that when we are stressed in a way that's not functional, we create the same space for others? So are we looking at learning? The third question, are you willing to learn ways in which you can use opportunities to transform what's not working with concrete tools, templates, and your and my practice? So this is an invitation. More after the break, where you will meet Pervin Varma.
We live in a world battling for peace, threatened with violence and inequality being justified as both means and ends, sometimes disguised, packaged, and branded differently. This self-destructive worldview is dominated and backed by spurious arguments for leadership based on the idea of supremacy of race, religion, or culture, or of money. Monica's counter, a perspective drawn from contemporary idiom, is based on experience and conviction. It shows that leadership can be shaped with equality, freedom, justice, and where means and ends are rooted in the transformatory power of human compassion, described in her award-winning book, Radical Transformational Leadership. Let's explore this transformatory power of human compassion together. Join us for the program with Dream Vision 7 Radio Network twice a month on Tuesdays at 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Eastern, and every Saturday at 6 a.m. Eastern. Share this information widely. Enroll people who want to make a difference. Dream Vision 7 Radio Network hosts many programs that unite humanity, sourcing our love. Are you a game changer? Do you care about creating a vibrant future for humanity planet? If you care, you'll choose to engage in strategic action in order to transform the realities of today for generating a thriving planet. Find out how you can do this. Read the award-winning book, Radical Transformational Leadership by Dr. Monica Sharma. This book is a systemic exploration of how to work with and transform the interlocking circumstances contributing to the complex problems we're facing. There's a chance of achieving a world that manifests peace, equity, and well-being for everyone. And this work offers the readers the creative ways and means of contributing to such a world-changing agenda.
It is my pleasure and honor to introduce Pervin Varma to you. Pervin Varma, in her almost 30 years of working life, has moved from advertising and communication in the corporate sector to immersing herself in social and development spaces. This has been transformational for her, she says. Her purpose in all the domains of her work and influence, that includes a small senior citizens choir and her passion to express herself through song, her governance of many, many institutions. She's on the board of many institutions. Her role as the CEO in CRY, she says, has enabled people to discover their inner power and calling. And her mission, her purpose in life, is to be able to support them to express this inner power and respond to their calling. And she does so with frameworks, perspectives, tools, and templates that are transformative in order for them to lead compassionate lives compassion in action is what she says in the world for herself and for everyone else. Pervin, thank you so much for joining us. And I will say more about you as we have the different sections unfold.
Sure. Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
Okay. Now tell me, Pervin, what would be the most significant contributions you've made as a radical transformational leader? Because not only are you supporting others to lead change, which I know you do, but you yourself are that radical transformational leader. What do you think are your most significant contributions?
Well, I think for me, it's been, I think in about 4 areas of my work life, at least, that I've been able to bring this work and also bring this work to bear in a sense. And I think one of them actually has been more in hindsight. In as I encountered the radical transformational work, it gave me such a powerful insight into the kind of work that I did with CRY. You mentioned I was CEO of CRY. And so in my time with CRY, because that's been the longest stint that I had in an organization, CRY as an organization was and is a pioneering organization in the area of child rights in India. And therefore has gone through a lot of change and redesigning itself, reorganizing itself in order to kind of stay relevant to serving the best interests of the child. But I think what I realized as we evolved was that there were times, because we were pioneering, we didn't really have we didn't have role models in a sense to follow or to kind of who had already discovered or charted the path. There were points and times where we actually veered off track, or we kind of, even as we were forging these new pathways. And it was, I always had this thought in terms of what was it that took us off path, and then, that we had to then kind of bring ourselves back. And when I encountered the radical transformational, the framework, this conscious full spectrum response framework, was when it just landed for me. Because what I realized was that a lot of the work that we had been doing, and deeply committed work, passionate people, were really working in the middle circle and inner circle domains, which was really, we were focused, we were recognizing that we needed to deliver results on the ground and solve crucial problems on the ground. We recognized that it was important for us and vital for us to look at larger systems and look at cultural norms and mindset shifts, etc. And yes, as an organization, we were governed by very strong values, and we believed, we were principled and all of that. But the missing piece, I think, was that we didn't have the frameworks and the tools and the templates to actually connect the space of our values, the inner capacity, the inner power, and especially the space of our values, into actually design and strategic action, and work simultaneously, in real time, simultaneously across all 3 domains. And I think that insight for me just changed the way I looked at what it means to actually lead change, what it means to what does leadership building actually look like? Because until then, leadership, there are various frameworks of leadership building, and it's looking at how do you build people's strategic skills, and how do you build their enrollment abilities, and how do you, their personal, how do you build the leaders individually. But this work, I recognize that integral to leadership building is not just who we are as people, but how we see, how we think, how we do, and how all that integrated from the space of our values. And I think that allowed me to then take it into the other domains subsequently of my work in governance,
Right, Pervin. It's interesting that your experience as the CEO of CRY, and CRY, by the way, stands for Child Rights and You. It's not about crying. About child rights and you, right?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
So as the